Yeah.
Okay. Let's first go back to the slide of the set and to clarify something. So we said set is unordered. The reason why set is unordered is because when it's stored to the program, is hashed. So like list, maybe use the code 0, 1, 2, 3 as the order. But when they store the set, it is used with the hash function. So that's why it's unordered. And when it comes when you store these, it may be hashed in the order the hash code generated. It might be in order apple, banana, cherry, but it could also be in a different order. So that's why when you print it out, it could be BCA or it could be ABC. Depends on just depends on the hash function used. And we also mentioned that the set is the set element must be immutable. But the set itself, you can use the function add element or remove element to change the elements. However, the set element itself must be immutable. For example, here, if I use a list, I give the set a list, then it will not work. Give an example here. For example, here, I want to give the set a list. Okay. I want to define a set with this list. Then it will report the error. It could be, this list is unhashable. However, if you give it a tuple, because tuples are immutable, it should work fine. It works fine because tuples are immutable elements. But sometimes we want to set a set with this list, and then you can use define the give it the type when you define the element, right? So for example, I can use this function to define a set and explicit the type. Then this will change this list to a set. And sometimes you can use this for like removing duplicate elements this. And actually, you read this article, it gives you more examples of how you can operate the elements in the set. For example, it also tells you how you can union to list or to sets and remove the duplicates like that. So this is also something new I just learned. See, this tells you some operators, especially for set, you can union to sets. What else you can do? And then you can get this intersection of this kind of operators. Okay. We have any more question about set? Okay, then let's move on to talk about statements, conditional statement and rules. I guess you all are very familiar with it already. So if else, so very easy. However, some common problem I see is when students write the if else statement, and especially when the it has like a lot of conditions, and they may write 90 here, and then they write 70 here, and then it goes back to 80 there. Then it's not in a good sequence, and not in a good order, and it may make you go wrong as well. And that if you're not sure whether your if else statement has covered everything, then you can draw a number line. Just draw a number line to see, hey, 0 to 100, whether you have covered everything, right? Well, especially some boundary numbers you may skip. It's easy to skip some boundary numbers like 90, whether 90 is grade A or grade B. You can easily go wrong. For example, here 90 actually should be grade A. Okay. Also, if you and you may just give it a variable or a function to replace it. Here, probably you just have a variable called grade, and then print out the grade at the end. Then that will make your code more succinct. Okay. Oh yes. So the difference between if elif, you have to be careful. Okay. Elif excluded this part, and some people will use a if score larger than 90, and then they use another if score larger than 80. That's okay, but if you use another if, then you have to add the and score larger than 80 and the score smaller than 90. So be careful of the difference between if and elif. Okay, while loop, I think it's very simple. While loop and for loop. While loop is used when you want to set up a condition. Okay, score is bigger than 0, then you do this loop. For loop, you use it when you know how many times it has to iterate, right? So I guess you're familiar with this. You can set up a range. The range is typically used for iteration. So here, if you iterate 10 times, like for compound data structures, list, dictionary, you could just iterate over the list. This V. So what does this V mean here? This V means that if you get the element from the list, yeah, V means the element from the list. So yeah, alternatively, you can use the range to get the length of the list, and then you tell it to iterate that many times. So here, this V is from 0 to the length of my list. This is more succinct. And when you write the iteration, you want to make sure this number, okay, this range number of this list should be stable. If it's changing, then it will give you an error. You may find this problem when doing the last question in the assignment. So iteration through a list, a couple ways to iterate through a list, well, a dictionary, right? So what this will give us? You can fetch the items from the dictionary, or you can fetch the keys from the dictionary, all the values. I believe this is obvious. So it will give you the, this will give you the, right? And this will give you the values. It should be a 1 to 2. And this is the keys, so it should be the country. The items will fetch each item here. It will print out both. It should suppose to print out both. And if you just do I in country code, I believe it only print out the keys. If you don't use this function, then it will print out just the keys. So just try different code to get familiar with these. Okay, I talk about the functions. So we often use it often because it breaks down the program into smaller, manageable code, and more importantly, you can reuse the function many times. So this is a typical function. You can give it a parameter, and it will return a variable, or it doesn't have to return anything. If you print out some variables, or just want to use it for some operations. And also, it's good to get familiar with the recursive function. Have you learned about this in programming? Yeah. Recursive function is in the function. When you define the function, you call the function itself. So here, for this problem, you want to do the multiplication from 1 to n. That's probably easy. Okay, you just do a for loop, right? For I in range n, and then you multiply this number. That's non-recursive. However, you can also do the recursive way. Write it into a recursive function. That is because this part, see this part, this is the n, and this part is actually f n minus 1. So here, this here usually in a recursive function, there are two things you need to define here. The first one is the base case. So when n is 1 or n is 0, what it should return. Okay. And then you have to do the recursive call the function itself. So here, when n is not this either 1 or 0, it should be n times fn minus 1. So that's a part of a recursive call. Another example is the Fibonacci number, which means the series numbers 0, 1, and the next number is the sum of the previous two number. That's 1 again, and then it's 2, and it's 3 and 5. So that's the Fibonacci number. If you just use a function, a non-recursive function, how should we write it? Give it an n. So how can we calculate the Fibonacci number? N times n numbers of Fibonacci. You probably want to go a loop for I. And you will say 3 variables, C equals the previous two number A plus B, and then what? So this okay. And then what would be 3? 3 will be 5. So after you get the C, this C would become the B, and this A. So this is the C, right? C is equal to A and B. So when we calculate the next numbers, go to the next iteration, this C would become B, and then this B would become A. In that way, you can go on. So what did I say? I also get confused. It looks very complicated, right? Write Fibonacci number in non-recursive way. So this C would become B, and this B would become A. Yes, and then it will go to the next loop, and then you do the A and B, initialize the A and B equals 0, B equals 1. I think that's all. And then after I finish the loop, you return C. I bet it works. So that's a non-recursive way to write the function. However, if we write it in a recursive way, how it could be? It would be like this format. If n equals 0 or n equals 1, then for example, C is the number we want to return. C equals n. Okay. However, if n is not these two numbers, else C would be what? C would be this. Actually, it should be F B A. Or else B N should be this N should be F N minus 1 plus F N minus 2. Minus 1 plus F N minus 2. So and return Fn. So this is much like clear or succinct than the one we just wrote. Function. It should be. Okay. Else return assignment. Or itself. So. And now you can use this to calculate that. 5. Okay, so that's what we call recursive calls, the recursive function. So which means that in the function you call itself. And the next, you talk about classes and objects. So classes often used when you want to define a type, like a student or a person. So and then you could create many instances and many objects of the class. And in the class, there are two components. One is an attribute and one is a functions. Attribute is like features of person, and function is what the person can do, what this class can do. And you use the function. Okay. For example, here is a typical class called students. And then at the beginning, you need to initialize this class. And these are here you define the parameters this class should have when it's initialized. A student must have a name, must have school. So these are the things that it must have. And here this is their attribute. And then you could define many functions or many attributes. And in the function, you could give the class itself to the function, so it will get all the attributes from the class. Be careful, because this one init as a 2 underscore, it could be applied to functions as well, or it could have some other things that you want to initialize. So, hey, for example, hey, I want to initialize. Like I want to initialize the like it's grade or something based on the score. So anyway, if there's some function has these two double score there, remember that this function will be initialized when you create a class. Like here, this function, it only works when you call it, right? When you create a class, create an object, when you call it, it will be used. However, like this one init, when you create a class, it will be run, right? And it could have some other double underscore and some other functions. And these functions, it will be run when the class is initialized. I had to learn the lesson when I worked on some classes a couple of weeks ago. So I was wondering, hey, why this class is not? Why this class like when some data set? Why these attributes are not there? But when I call it, it works. So later I found, hey, it has like some functions with double scores and double underscores, and they will run actually. They will calculate it when it's initialized. Okay. No. Are we all familiar with the classes and objects? Yeah, good. And so here I created some instances for the class. And then you can use the objects. Here is one object, student 1, student 2, and it's a list. So you can use the objects like a list into a list. So we can iterate through these objects. Okay, and here don't forget to give the class itself to the function so it can use these attributes. For example, if you delete this and you just calculate the grade, then it will go wrong. It will not let you. Because you didn't pass these attributes to the function, right? I think that's all we need to cover here, and yeah, you get familiar when you work on the assignments. So now we use a lot of libraries, a lot of classes that were built already, right? When you import package and import classes, if it has the square, then it means that it's a function from that class. You're using a function from a class. And if it doesn't have square, for example, if I use a student2 dot name, then it's an attribute from that class. That's the difference between attribute and the functions. Okay, let's move on to, I think that's the main things I want to cover for Python about the Python language. Just these are the main things I want to review. And in the assignment, you will need to complete those to let me know whether there's a gap or not, or whether they have good to go to the next lesson. Okay. There are some formatting things that I want to mention. So what different in Jupyter Notebook is you can add long paragraphs in Jupyter Notebook. It's like a Word, Microsoft Word that you can use to write a report in command line with Python.py files. You can now write long articles. So those usually you use .py those files to write programs like Java. However, in Jupyter Notebook, Jupyter Notebook is more used for writing data reports. So you can run the code. However, oftentimes you can run the code, and for the code, you should add appropriate comments. If in some places, in places wherever it need explanation, right? So another feature Jupyter Notebook has is you can change it to Markdown, and here you can write long paragraphs. This is often used for writing long paragraphs. And you can add headings, define the heading style. For example, if I have this one, I change it to code again. So this is a different heading level from the previous one I just entered, right? And you can have a double. So this yeah, could be, you could define different heading levels in Jupyter Notebook. When do we use comment? And when do we use Markdown? If you just want to explain the code, you use comment, right? If you want to explain your result, you use a Markdown. And later, when we do data visualization or prediction model, you will be asked to explain the result, interpret the result, and then you have to use a Markdown a lot. Next one, I want to review some style guide for Python code. You were able to use that software called, I forgot what that software.
For the assignment where we copy and paste the thing at the end, so we use Markdown for that.
Yeah. That's a good suggestion. Yeah. Okay. For like if you use the software to write Python code, .py files, that you are able to use some embedded software to do the code, like to do the formatting code, right? But in Jupyter Notebook, I didn't find anything that you can install to help you check the code. So it's good to review the style guide. I think most of us have done very good. Here, some examples. I have examples of code R. We do two in each group. Okay, do discussion. Which one are correct?
That'd be the same thing. Assuming this is fine, probably already.
This one gets things.
That's like that. Oh, yeah. I'm just putting on pregnancy. There. Like, it does, right? Not sure. That's the story. Oh, it's calling it. Smart. Let me call you. Sharp now, which is really opposite of what I'm doing. According to this right here, that's how you call that. Only for life fish, we have the, yeah, because we have returns here, no calling. So. Those would be wrong.
Don't look at my code, those may not be good example. I never learned the style guide until I took this class. Actually, it's very good that the department requires.
So we're looking for semicolon usage. The usage of semicolons. Because they're missing that as well. Like how these are missing semicolons.
They all run fine.
So
All they put on fine. It's just that one.
they all run.
Yeah. All run.
Okay, so that one probably is right. I guess just like if it looks good like that, but this probably piece friendly somewhere. Probably check this one. I'll check that one. That works.
Yes.
And then on one line,
This is doing this.
all that could go on one line. There.
This is one.
One line, or
From
probably wrong.
rather than all.
That will, think you could use. Thank you, of course.
So you know that now. It's hard when you. I don't know.
We all done?
I remember.
Okay, let's give 1 more minute, okay? Yeah.
Just side note, you know, we can go over like how to another side, either we can use that or if I. Because I'm gonna use what I'm trying to do this. Like, well, I was trying to do this earlier, like, I was like, keep up your. Not telling sure one. So if you actually change all. Not sure, but they separate different comments, but. I wasn't. It could look better, it's going to be right. I don't know what yeah. I mean, it's just down here. Yeah. I would say. So you go like that, like watch later, look like that. Okay, and that's literally the next one, brown ball, and court ball. So that way, if you gotta have multiple outputs. Right, from logic, so that one just says import, some of that says, this between this and that, I'm guessing there's a difference. I don't think it did happen. Yeah. I was, this is right. Yeah, I didn't say five, that's like this.
Okay, so let's stop here. Okay, let's stop here and go over the answer. We have done that. So for the first one, for your answers, all the code are correct, they run fine, okay? Just the format here is not a good habit. The first one was your answer? Wrong? You all said it correct? Okay. This is actually not a good style, because the operator, they sit far from their operand. So the operator should be good to the next line. So we can easily know whether you are adding that variable or not. So,
Why, could you repeat that?
the operators have text for each, those operators should be moved to the next line. So it should be gross wage, and then the second line, add actually. And the operators then should be moved to the next one, so you can easily see, whether it's a line
Oh,
or
I guess that
flat.
was, yeah.
Yeah.
So the question, so, the plus, instead of like, so you remove gross wages and then you'll get the plus
Yes.
on the text, oh,
Yes,
okay,
yes.
so then this one, the plus that's after taxable interest, that is cut, okay,
It's too
okay,
far from the
gotcha, gotcha, okay, that makes sense.
second one. What do you want, the second one,
Right.
correct, or?
It's for number two.
They're right,
Number two.
yeah, number two. Yeah, we all can do it in this way. Actually, it's the style also, however, there are different packages, it's better to put them in different lines. However, the third one is correct, if it's from the same package but different modules. We have to clean that in the same.
You know, it's crazy, right?
I agree. And it's something, we are learning together along the way, okay? It's just something I just learned also, like my import, it goes along. It goes along list and not ordered. So a better way to order it is like this. The first trunk is the standard library. Second part is a third party import, like you import some classes from the package. And then the last one is the local application. I mean, you yourself, you created some classes, right? You created some classes and it's in another file. And then those could be saved. Those could be put in the last one track.
So look, with that one, would the pipe fall under a second implementation?
You don't have to, if your pipe, and if you have a separate line for the pipe, then you have to repeat the first part from sub-process import pipe. So that works, but it's not the same. So for classes or modules from the same package, so some processes, that's a package. That's a package, right? And these are two classes or modules from the package, and then you can put it together. Okay, the next one for good or bad style.
Spacing punctuations.
The
colon, commas should come right after.
That's correct. Yes, there should be no space after a X. It's no space before the comma, but space after the comma. And there's another problem with this also. So for those statement, it's good to have a separate line, okay, for the statement. The condition is the first line, and then it's sometimes we put them in the same line. Look like hey, the code is short, but it's not a good habit. Actually, you should put it in a separate line. And here. It actually has two statements. There's a comment, right? There's the comma and then the colon. So there should be this. This is the second statement. X y equals y x. And the second statement it should go another line. So this one should be separated into 3 lines. Okay. Next one. The correct or wrong? Yes, correct. That's correct. So the next one is the in contrast to this one. X equals x times 2. Is that correct or wrong?
Correct.
And what do you all think? Yes, yes. So if there are two operators and the operators have a priority, that like here, you would do the x times 2 first, right? And this should be put together closer. Okay, and then the what you call lower priority or higher priority. The one you want to calculate first should be put together. So this one is wrong, actually. The next one, correct or wrong?
Correct.
Why?
Because you're setting the thing that you're sending to function, you're setting it equal to something. Well, it's in the parentheses.
Yeah. You think there should be spaces?
That wasn't my initial thought, but as I'm go with now.
But actually, this is correct. So for operators, you should add a space in front and after the operator. But if it's a parameter or a keyword argument, there should be no space around the equal sign. Okay, so these are parameter values. It doesn't have to be there should be no spaces. Okay, the last one, correct or incorrect?
Incorrect.
Why?
It's a Boolean, you can just do that reading.
That's right. So you don't need to compare Boolean values to true or false. So you could just say, write if greeting, right? Delete the last part equal sign. Or you could say if exclamation greeting, if you want to do the both sides. Okay. Last thing, just like I have 1 or 2 minutes, help you get familiar with the Jupyter Notebook as you suggested. What's your name?
Yeah.
Dion, yes, as Dion suggested. That's quite good. So we use the Markdown and the code. I never use these two. I use the pound key for heading. So we have mentioned this, and this is adding trunk, and you use this to cut out a trunk. Cut out a trunk. So often I use. I don't think I ever use it. Yeah, this is to move the trunk up and down. So these are you just move the trunks up and down. Sometimes you use that, not often. Yes, so add a trunk and cut off the trunk. You use it often, and then so this is just a separate chunks, right? We are just demonstrated these concepts of these separate chunks. However, later we will write a whole report, and then the later codes they are built on previous variables. Then often you will have to run the whole file from the first chunk to the last one. Then you can use these I run all, or run all above. These are often used. Other than that, you just add a chunk. You just add a chunk and then run this chunk. If you have like if you have already run previous chunk, then you add a chunk. The variables are already there, so you just use run this chunk. If you it can call the variables. But sometimes you change the variable in the middle, so it will change all the result, right? You change the variable in the middle of the report, and then you have to update run the whole report again, run all the chunks again for the variables to be updated for the later chunks. Okay, so that's all, that's a common problem you may have, right? Here, I changed the variable. Okay, why my result doesn't change? That's because you didn't rerun the code. You just change the result, but you change the variable, but you didn't rerun the code. Okay? And occasionally, your report or your data is too big, or some of the code went wrong, and then the Python, the Jupyter notebook will keep on running, like it will be solid circle. I mean, it's keep on running this chunk. Then if it you have waited too long, you may want to stop the program. Okay. I think that's all I often use. And sometimes you open the Jupyter notebook and it doesn't run. That means that your kernel is dead. Your kernel is dead. You have to restart the kernel from Anaconda. You have to run the terminal again, and then it will restart the Jupyter notebook program. Think that's all the essential things that I use. It's really very easy tool because it's open for non-programmers and programmers. Not like those coding software. They are intended for programmers, but the Jupyter notebook, this is intended for programmers and non-programmers who runs data. Okay, so it's really easy to use. Okay, any question? Oh, anyone need me to review the your assignment so you can stay?
I was gonna ask, as far as like the group discussions, could you folks like the solutions as well, just so we could get like a better view of it? Like what's going on?
Discussions?
Yeah, like for this, like could you post like
okay.
solutions to it?
Yes, yes. I'll post it after the class. Okay. Okay. Yeah, that concludes the lesson. See you next week.
So when I moved it over to the thing for Anaconda, it's all there, just normal. That okay as long as it's transferred over?
Fine.
This is just, this is the tool I'm so used to using. And I've used it for years now, so. Yeah, it's still a totally normal computer file. So I don't even know if I need to, but I took it over here just to make sure.
Yeah.
It's all there. I get a little bit of a weird format. There's some of these questions, what's weird is if you go into it, it's a long time to change, but I'll play around with it if I can't figure that one
Yeah.
out. But
That's absolutely fine. Some students, they use it to use this and then they put all the code in one chunk. I don't like that.
yeah, no, I played with that. I've done that before, but when I did my internship, they introduced me to Jupyter Notebooks, and I'm like, it's way better.
Yeah, yeah, you don't have to run the command line. It is. It has.
Okay, perfect. Like I do have a restricted download on my actual computer. So it's like, oh,
Yeah, so,
probably use the Google Colab.
yes. Mention. You can use the Google Colab.
Yes.
Google Colab.
One question.
I don't know why it's blocked, but it will like generate a folder for me and I can.
But I want to play with it and see if it's just like, because it has a single eye, maybe it's not, is that the process?
No.
think so. Yeah, it's the one with the house, it's like, it's like 100,000 to 150, it's like downtown side, and you're like, what? Whatever. It's still real, it's just, hey, like.
It should work, just watch some material, you can use this on the law and computer. Okay. Saves a lot of space.
Okay, thank you.
You don't even have to install Python.
Okay. Okay.
I emailed you earlier, I said that. it's-
Okay.
From the slides, I interpreted that you wanted us to send it through email, so that's like a fine, but it makes more sense. doing it that way.
Yeah, yeah, last semester I had to send the email, this semester. Yeah, lost some.
Just submit it.
Grade it and don't need to go back.
That makes sense.
Okay.
Thank you.
you.
So I was actually able to complete the assignment
Okay.
already by just reading like the notes that you had, and I also kind of gave L'Oreal on how to start up Juniper Notebook and use it and all that. And I just wanted to like check with you, make sure that I was supposed to at the bottom of the assignment, like write down or link the notes that I found online as well, right?
Link one,
Like the notes that I found online to use.
the notes you find on.
Oh, I,
Refer to.
Yeah.
Reference.
yeah, like I'm supposed to like just jot down any sources I found, basically,
Oh, you mean the discussion for the discussion or for the assignment?
for the assignment.
For the assignment, you provided with sample code. Yeah, so you can
Yeah.
refer to other code, you can refer to any of these. Internet use, don't have to.
Okay, cool. I was just making sure.
Yeah, unless you are like later, you are like number four, some concepts. And but for code, you refer to other code, that's our learning process.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for the class.
See you next week.